Welcome back. Joe Volpe, publisher of Corriere Canadese, which you know is the only Italian language daily newspaper and hard copy in all of North America. On behalf of Go Live TV and Corcan Media Group to continue surveying the upcoming municipal elections. We saw the mayor of Brampton this morning. Now we've got back our attention back onto trustees elections, and in particular the school board that serves Catholics, the Toronto Catholic District School Board. And I have with me a candidate, aspiring trustee, Gianfranco Cristiano.
Thank you, Mr. Volpe.
It sounds like an appropriate name because it's a Catholic place, it's a Christian ethic, and there you are, Gianfranco Cristiano.
Perfect bridge.
Gianfranco, you look like a fairly young guy. I know you're not, but what drove you to run for a political position, especially one as a trustee?
Well, you see, Mr. Volpe, there's a lot of issues that are going on from between the board level to the schools to the community. And as you are aware, obviously, because you covered it plenty of times, the icing on the cake was the whole redevelopment between Dante and Regina. And
so this is in Ward 5, right?
This is in Ward 5.
Okay.
So those funds being held for 8 years and nothing.
You're talking about the $32.8 million
being held for that redevelopment, which is something that they should have, a school board should never team up with a developer. To me, they didn't put the kids first. And we have to remember that trustees especially are voted in by parents, by people that want to put the kids first. And we need to make sure that the kids are the first priority. And the bridge has disconnected between the parents and the schools.
Gianfranco, some people would say, you know what, we are putting kids first. I know the trustee, the outgoing trustee, would say, I want to build a school for the kids.
Yeah, they want to build a school for the kids, but there's so many issues that are going inside the schools that they can use those funds to expand the schools, get rid of the portables, for example, that exist in so many schools. There's no need to tear down a school that was built in 1974 when we have other schools that were built in the early to mid-50s.
You mean you're talking about a place like St.
St. Charles or St. Cosmo St. Damien as well.
They were built a lot earlier than Regina
Mundi and Dante, which were built in the 70s.
Yeah.
So you want to tear down, 2 schools, that was just beneficial for the developers at that point in time, which was those deals that they made.
So you're talking about actually allocating the resources for program or for expansion in order to improve the infrastructure.
Absolutely, absolutely, because we need to understand it's not just about the structure, it's inside. It's the resources that are given to the schools, the resources that may be lacking at the schools, and why those resources are not getting to every single child, especially from what I'm hearing when I go door knocking to the parents, when they're saying that parents that have special needs children do not have access to the resources like the other children. And the other children are not more special, and we need to find out exactly why they don't have that access.
Well, yeah, I can tell you, I'll be the devil's advocate for a moment. It's because trustees don't make it a priority. Are you going to make it a priority?
I will make it a priority, because if the trustees don't make it a priority, then I think that their time is up. And that's one of the reasons why I'm running. We have trustees that have been around for a long time, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Some of them are actually quite good.
Yes,
We're going to interview in a few minutes.
But this is what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but if you've been a trustee for 10, 15, 20 years, and you have a disconnect with your community, there's obviously a reason why. It's because you're not putting your kids first. And not your kids, the children first, the students, right?
Let's call them your kids.
Exactly, right? So we need to make sure that a trustee that goes in is going to put the kids first. They're going to make the parents' voices heard at the board level and at the schools. They need to make sure that they are the only priority when they are making decisions, and not about marginalizing their profits and linking up with other developers or what's feasible. They need to know what is needed at each individual schools.
Well, for example, because you mentioned the names of the schools, Regina Mundi probably could use a double gym. They have a very small gym, and they could get rid of those portables, maybe clean up the air conditioning, etc.
Absolutely.
They were given a lot of money for that.
That's right. And all that money that they were given would be suffice for them to get that double gym, to put AC, to expand their schools, as well as Dante, and get rid of the portables. But they decided to hold on to it to see what was a better fit for the developers, the village charities, that whole project.
So I can imagine that the Ministry of Education, which is taking a particular attitude. Now, I'm going to mention this because I passed by where you and your workers were on the weekend, and I noted you had about 50 or 60 people, and I'll come to it in a second. But, the province kind of froze a lot of things. The province came in and intervened in that particular project. You got to go back to that province. Now, as I understand it, one of the people that was at that function on the weekend was none other than the Premier.
Absolutely. The Premier, Doug Ford, has been an always supporter of our community. Going back to, God rest his soul, Rob Ford, when he was mayor, when our Dufferin and Lawrence community barbecue that we do every year, they always showed their respects in showing up for the people. Now, it's unlikely that a premier would interfere in whether they endorse or meddle in per se.
Yeah, but he has, hasn't he? I mean, as I understand it, he's tweeted his support for you.
Absolutely.
Why?
And the reason why I believe he did that is because he feels that the board or the people need to be represented by somebody who's connected to the community, who's connected to the youth issues that we have within our school system. And he knows me on a personal level, that he feels that I can be that change that we need in this community to dissect all the issues that are going on at each individual schools.
Well, but you know what? You're not going to interfere in another trustee's school.
Well, think about it. It goes back to what your article, when you said about purging the school board, and you mentioned some of the other trustees that, haven't really done much for their communities. Maybe Doug Ford was pretty much in line with what you were saying.
Well, I know he reads the paper.
Yeah, there you go.
But you know what? The thing that our newspaper and this program has been harping on, being really aggressive on, is the fact that the provincial standards, ICAO, that measure student performance, have found that the school board that you want to go and serve in is really poor when it comes to math scores in grade 3, grade 6, grade 9. Believe it or not, if you got bad math scores, forget about the reading and writing so far, but you're not going to, your chances of graduating from high school or even getting into university, they keep dropping down.
Yeah.
And your school board is one of the weakest ones. What are you going to do about that?
Well, you see, I've actually assessed all the scores, and you are correct. Majority of the scores, like you said, aside from reading and writing, the math scores are all below provincial standards, and they don't get better as they get into grade 9, so they are not well prepared. So my question is this.
Because they're incremental knowledge, and if you don't get them down right, then how do you do the next level?
So my question is, why hasn't the board come down hard on the educators? Why hasn't the board put in place some sort of program to deal with the students that haven't performed well of those literacy tests, of the math tests? We don't have a program in place that gets those students and maybe spend a little bit more time with them, whether it means we have to get more help at the school level, more resources to help them, because when they go into high school, they are not prepared, just like you mentioned. And we need to do something about that, and that is a #1 priority as well.
Well, not only not prepared when they get into high school, when they get out of high school and want to get into universities. There was a recent study that suggested that some universities immediately put an X across the name of some kids who come from particular schools because they don't think that there's any validity in the scores.
Yeah, well, you see, this is the problem, right? It's all about reputation too, and that's what some schools have gained in some of the wards, or reputation. See, we have an influx of immigration that's coming in. There's a lot of changes coming into the school system, and whether that reflects on the scores or not, whatever the issues are, we need to dissect them, and we need to provide the resources to build that child's knowledge as they get older into high school and beyond.
And I'm glad you mentioned this issue about immigration, because your school board actually has declining enrollment. I know. I've heard some of the senior staff say, "Oh no, we're getting more and more kids." Well, no, you're not. Your number last year is it's under 90,000, and so you're going to. I don't see very many people having kids. You're still young enough to have kids, and so the only kids you're going to get are the ones that other people bring in here, immigration, and the immigration that I see isn't Catholic.
Unfortunately, but the little bit of Catholic immigration that comes in, the Catholic students that do come through our school system, they put their hopes in us to be able to, #1, deal with the main issue, which is what links everybody together between the Toronto Catholic District School Board and a regular school board, is the faith. And that's what drives a lot of people through our system. Now, unfortunately, there are some Catholics that don't come to our school board, and they do go to a public school board because of a dysfunctional system. So we need to restore that reputation. We need to restore that faith with the community, whether it's immigrations in the next few years or the current students and parents now with the community, that we need to restore and build that bridge again between the community and the schools and the school board.
Well, so if you're going to build that kind of connection back with those people, and you're looking at the new immigrants who want to feel a sense of comfort with the school board, what kind of logic would have gone through somebody's mind that said, we're going to eliminate the international languages program? It cost, I don't know, I forget what the exact numbers were, $200,000 more than we need. You had a budget of over $1 billion in operating costs, and you didn't, well, I'm sorry, I shouldn't point at you, but you eliminate a link to the new communities.
Exactly, and that is a major problem, and that's why I'm in favor of the international extended program, and especially like we said, that the numbers of immigrations that keeps on increasing every year, we need to be able to accept them and give them the resources and for the children, and having a third language other than English and French is very much needed and important. Now I understand that some educators are not for it because maybe the type of language in the school, there's not, it's not that popular. Maybe we need to change it. The mechanics of it can be adjusted, but it's very important to make sure that we maintain that international extended program.
I'll be biased. The Corriere Canadese is an Italian language daily newspaper. The programs that we're doing here, they're in English language, but we do our commentary in English and Italian and Portuguese. We're going to start in Spanish. We're going to do other languages. We have a specific interest. So our interests are on the table.
That's
and
right.
We're not, we got involved in the International Languages Program, Studies of Italian, and we found that one of the first things that came out is that the local union said, no, we got to eliminate it because our teachers have to work 20 minutes more in these schools than in other schools.
See, that problem there going on, what you're saying is they kind of calculated it to being a total of some people are working 16 days out of the year when they add up those 20 minutes per day, longer than their coworkers at another school. At the end of the day, it's almost like looking at a corporation in different divisions. Some people are going to work a little bit longer, more than the other. That's a union issue, and I would love to learn more about that, how we can rectify that and build that bridge, but I don't see eliminating an extended day program just for the benefit of all teachers finishing at the same time is beneficial for parents.
Well, I don't know. They're not on an assembly line, So like I'm a little bit of a cynic on this, and our newspaper is taking a real tough position on it. You can't operate as an assembly line professional.
That's right.
And then turn around and say, well, we need to have the same benefits as somebody who works at an assembly line as a worker.
Yeah.
You either one or the other.
Yeah.
Anyway, Gianfranco, we're at our time, and so I want to thank everybody for following Corriere Canadese, Go Live TV, Corcan Media Group, and its assessment of some of the candidates who are running for office. Gianfranco Cristiano, 2 words before I sign off.
Thank you once again for having me. On October 22nd, make sure your voices are heard. I am the true candidate that will make sure your voices are heard at all levels of the board to the schools.